the last thing is gonna be the discussion of the parking situation that was tabled.
What we talked about, can we let Joey speak? He's got some more to talk about.
Well, I mean, you heard me the other night talking about the problems I have driving the school bus in the city. And my idea is there should be no parking on the side of the road. I agree with snow or ice or something like that being a problem. Yeah, let those people that have steep driveways park on the side of the road for that. But other than that, there should not be a car on the side of the road at all. I mean, as far as using it for your driveway, they should not be using the side of the road for the extension of their driveway, of their property, like they got a right to park there or not. They shouldn't be doing that. Visitors, stuff like that, not a problem. During the summer, the only problem I really have is if a person is using the side of the road for their driveway, and say a landscaper or something like that comes along, he parks right next to them, then I got problems. Just yesterday, I was going around Arbor Court, no, not Arbor, but Aspen Court, up in Hammond, and I had to drag my bus through a tree because there was a car parked right across from it. A lot of these people don't think about what's parked on the other side where they're parking. Whether it be a tree, a mailbox, a driveway, they don't think about that. I actually, last year, took out a mailbox just by trying to go around the car because I've got 12-foot of bus behind me that pivots when I turn. It doesn't bend in the middle. 60-foot of bus don't bend in the middle. It pivots. I took out a mailbox going around the car because the back end of my bus went off the road. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there should be no parking on any of these streets here.
Do you travel up in Westridge at all with the school bus?
Westridge?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my route. Yep.
What do you think about the streets in Westridge?
I can't take my bus down like the main streets that go across.
Mm-hmm.
I go down Kaywood, Pine, and Jefferson because I can't even turn my bus to go down the other roads. So those are narrow. I've actually got a video here of, well, the limb truck was up there the other day, and he was taking down some stuff. And I know he's got his job to do, but he was standing there talking to somebody in the yard, and I needed to go around him because I had kids to take home. And he was waving me through with not even an idea that if I come through, I was going to knock over some trash cans. I got to get them trash cans out the way. So, I mean, he had to move the trash cans so I could go by. If he hadn't have been there, I'd have been taking out trash cans.
How long is your bus? 52 foot?
60.
60?
Yeah, it's a 78 passenger bus, probably one of the biggest ones we got. And it's got 12 to 15 foot of swing behind the back tires. So when I take a 90-degree turn, I'm swinging that back end around.
So what's the width of it, you know?
The width will probably going to be about 8 foot, I'd say.
8 foot wide?
Yeah. I don't have usually a problem going down the roads, even like Hammond and stuff, unless I've got to drag my mirrors through a tree. So if I don't have the option to kind of go to the center a little bit, passing cars and stuff becomes a problem. And a lot of times even, I'll keep going down the road and the car will just stop in the middle of the road until I go by. And the thing about it is when they stop, there's a tree, a mailbox, a sign or something right across them. They do it all the time. It's like, pick a better spot. Maybe I can go off the road or something. But that's what they're doing. But yeah, I can get by if there's nothing there. But when you start putting cars on the road, it makes it tough.
I mean, I'm all about having people park in the driveways with exceptions, like if it's a holiday and you have family over, you know, because they're not gonna be there all day long. Or the landscapers, because you know, they're not gonna be there all day or not either. But can we not, well, I don't even know if we could, but if they have to park on the road, like landscaping or something, that they all follow one side of the road, like in a neighborhood
Same
parking.
direction.
Yeah, instead of, you know, doing this through.
Yeah.
Parking with another car on the other side of the road. That can't happen, or like Joey said, you got 2 cars on the same side of the road, one on one side and the other on the other side.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking like if, like a bunch of landscapers.
Oh, I agree with you,
They're all on the same.
Yeah, but then you get other lane come in and just say we don't need them parking on, next to each other on opposite side.
Oh, yeah.
Since the letters have gone out and we started enforcing the way it is currently, have we seen an increase or decrease of calls of complaints? Increase of complaints of people like calling to complain that they're like.
The complaints we're receiving are people are now complaining that there's a car parked on their side of the road in front of their home. There's complaints where people have got parking tickets and drove around the city and found other cars parked and now want them to get tickets. So now it's kind of a war between neighborhoods.
Yes.
Where before it was just Hammond Estates, now it's through the whole city. It's got out of control, actually. That's why something has to come to a resolution here. And from what I've seen out of 2 or 3 meetings, no one has shown up to be pro-parking.
No.
It's only been against it, so.
I mean, I've also had a Google form up with responses, and I've had more responses saying, don't change, enforce it. Nobody has the right to park on the street. I mean, that's one that's one comment right there.
However the board decides, currently as it's written, no one is allowed to park on the street. And I don't even think it exempts public safety, ambulances, fire trucks, I don't think it exempts it. The only thing is there's the weather exemption.
Yeah.
But as of right now, no one is allowed to park on the street. Obviously, that's a little strict. There needs to be some thought in that, such as Hammond Estates on Halloween.
Yes,
As it is right now, everybody's getting a ticket. You can't park there.
I need to park on one side of the road in that neighborhood on Halloween.
Speaking of public
Well, who's
safety,
gonna fuss, I mean, they're gonna fuss if it's not on their side, or if it's on their
Correct.
side.
Correct. You're still gonna
If
get complaints.
you know, they're gonna fuss regardless if it's all the right side, then those people gonna fuss. And if you park it on the left side, then they're gonna fuss.
The thing of it
It's a
is, you're
hard
gonna have to be
solution.
consistent all the way through town.
Where before, the only time we drive through a neighborhood, people parked on the street, we didn't say anything. If somebody called and complained about it, then we would go out and ask them to move. If they continued such and they kept doing it, I had to go out and buy specially made parking ticket books that I kept. And then I would go out and issue the ticket on a violator who kept doing it. After this is all said and done, we're moving forward with electronic citations, and we're gonna just go out and start issuing tickets.
what's that?
That's
Computerized.
voted for the.
But it's
one.
going to bug my department just driving around all day looking for parkers, because they're all over the city. So I would like to see something put in there. The Amazon truck, I mean, the mail lady, I mean, there's people, they're parking on the street. So there has to be some descriptive wording in there.
We'll have to pull in the driveways. then,
Because
guess.
if I write somebody a ticket and they come to court and they got a picture of this person parked there mowing this guy's lawn or something, it's not right. There has to be some verbiage in there to separate all this.
I grew up on East Severe. Have you ever been on East Severe?
A few times.
Yeah. It's a tight fit.
It
You
is.
kind of close your eyes and just
Yeah.
there you go.
There are some neighborhoods you can park cars on one side of the road, but then you're gonna have people complaining who live on that side of the road that believe they own the street and they don't want cars in front of their house. Which is silly right now until mowing season comes.
Right.
And this guy's trying to mow his lawn and he's blowing grass on this guy's car.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have a fight in the street and that's something else we gotta deal with. You have the mail person who's trying to get around each car to deliver. If it was something where it said weekends and holidays, the bus isn't running, the mail isn't running, but then that's gonna get out of control because everybody's gonna be parking all over the place. I've beat my brain over this and I can't come up with any logical solution other than no parking. With exceptions to extreme weather, which is a weird exception because we have to plow the street.
Right.
But now we can't plow the street in the extreme weather because there's cars on the street. So that didn't make much sense, but it's safe for them because some of these driveways go down, they'll slide right through their house. The backside of Creekside, the driveways that do this, I've thought of exemptions. If your driveway had such a pitch and a slope that could cause danger, maybe they can park, because people on Creekside and that backside have been parking there for as long as I can remember. And have you ever had a problem on that backside?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a-
Was it the beginning and the end where you had to turn in, or is it
No,
just the
I've
width?
had a problem with meeting cars,
Okay.
and I'm not backing up, they're gonna
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah.
I've had a problem with people not parking straight. I had a truck one time parked up this,
Okay.
and I got basketball goals
Yeah.
on the side of the road. They don't think about those things. My mirrors are gonna hit those if I try to go around somebody.
Okay.
So, yeah, Creekside's a little bit of an issue sometimes.
From what I understand, they've been parking in their driveways now.
They have.
Okay.
Except for one guy that's parking on the other side of the road and other people's property,
All right.
where they throw the trash.
Got a picture there.
Yeah.
I will say that of the complaints that I have gotten personally, the cars are people using the street as their driveway.
Mhm.
I'm not getting complaints from people if the Amazon truck or a mower or somebody's there. These are pictures that people send me, or, you know, come look on this particular street. And I actually did go out last weekend and looked at one situation that a person has repeatedly complained to me about, and I could identify every single car that person has complained to me about. So I knew, like, these are people using the street as their driveway. So
There's been
throwing that out.
discussion of, you have a death in the family. You have, sir, everybody comes into your house, where do they park? Do they get a permit through the police department to park there? Do they, I mean, there's just so many what ifs to this parking situation. Holidays, weddings, get-togethers.
You bring up a good point that if they wanted to come and get some sort of permit, then you would already know
Yeah.
who that house would be. So if somebody called and said, you know, I've got a complaint about this, you could say, you know, well, they have gotten permission or whatever.
I'd have
You
to
would
buy a
know.
placard or something that they
Yeah.
would put on their dashboard, that way somebody can give them
And
a ticket.
everybody else is gonna get one.
Well,
But you'd have discretion at that point on, you know, who you allow to do it.
What's the event,
Well,
what's the
when
occasion?
you have a death in the family, usually the funeral home will put,
Yeah,
you know,
Signs.
funeral.
Slow sign.
Right, but it doesn't override our current ordinance. I'm not gonna go out and write tickets for that, no, that's not.
So where does discretion come in?
Correct.
right, and that's,
And that's where I get in arguments with citizens, because we use discretion, and they don't want us to use discretion because either one time, they got a ticket, or they don't think it's right, or then it just causes more, we're not doing our jobs, we're allowing all this to happen.
We're keeping this from person to person, person to person, and it just going in a cycle.
Correct. I was nice on Creekside. I went through and wrote a note, a letter, I'm sure everybody's seen it on Facebook. Because they've been parking there for so long, I didn't think it was right to just go right by a ticket. I wanted to give them some warning, so I wrote a little letter and gave them all one. They blasted me on Facebook, it was ridiculous, so.
can't.
No, I was being nice,
I have.
and that's what happens when you're nice.
I come by the school bus when you was walking through, I was like, he's not happy.
No, that's a long walk.
But that's where I would think the discretion comes into holidays, after hours, things like that. I mean, honestly, we don't have the police force to drive
No.
the city.
I would almost
day
have
out
to hire a
looking for
parking meter
examples.
maid,
Right,
a parking
yeah.
person.
Yeah, so I mean, that's where if you leave it as a blanket, no parking, you know, those examples that I've seen a lot of, well, what happens if we have a birthday party, or what happens if as long as you're not impeding business or traffic or school buses or garbage pickup, there's really no problem.
That's that verbiage in the ordinance. Because as the law states, where I'd like something in there to give us some wiggle room.
So I guess that becomes a question more for the attorney of what does that verbiage look like?
But who's
We just
impeding,
kicked it to you now.
who's
Yeah,
impeding
so
the traffic though? The first one parked there, the second one parked there?
Next question,
Yeah.
can you make it to where it's like during, no parking on the streets during the hours that he's picking up kids and delivering?
We've thought about that. We've talked about no parking between the hours of 6 or 7 a.m. to like 4 p.m. And that gave time for mail and school buses and lawnmowers and everything else. And after that, the street should be clear to be okay. But then you're going to get into the abuse of it. Now everybody's parked on the street.
I think that is
You
what
give
has led us to
and take
this
them
point.
Yes.
And also, you know, got emergency vehicles that travels at night, you don't know what time somebody's gonna have a heart attack or have something for you, you have to get run through there.
Okay.
We don't want to have problems. And not every street would qualify for that. Like he was saying, he can only go up Jefferson Cave. Them streets over there, you can't park anything there.
Right.
You'll go up on them streets, the Amazon trucks there, you're waiting 10 minutes. The bigger subdivisions like Hammond Estates and Sherbrooke, places like that, you could almost allow it on one side of the street, but now we have to designate what side of the street they're going to park on. And then we're going to make them people angry. And then we're going to open up this whole new can of worms, and we're going to be doing this every month.
Okay.
It just
how
needs
do
to be
towns
loosened.
determine, like Kingsport, you know, on East Sevier, going up the road, you're on the right side.
Yeah, I think they have certain rules. You can only park in a certain direction and all that kind of stuff. How they came about all that, I don't know.
Well, if you're going up the right side, you are on the correct side of the road to
Correct,
park,
correct.
yes.
But I have seen
Yes.
people park on the roadside, I mean, they just pull in a certain way, instead of going with the flow of traffic, they just park opposite way sometimes.
Yeah, which is always illegal. If the language in it, there's a lot of great language in the current ordinance about parking in front of fire hydrants so far from the edge, from an intersection, stops, things like that. That should be kind of left in there. But then there should be some loosening of the no parking at all. There's like one exception, so maybe add a couple more. I would even, just to throw it, I'd throw in emergency vehicles, garbage trucks, you know, things, I would put that in there.
I mean, we don't allow speeding. We don't
Correct.
write every single person a ticket.
Correct, we use discretion.
Yeah.
Discretion, that's where
I don't think that we need to get that detailed in the ordinance, because I think that holds us to, I don't know, that might be more in your realm.
It's, could it not just say
It's impossible.
at the discretion of the police officer, like the speed limit?
There is no good answer. That's, seems like the most logical answer, but then you have the police officers being accused of favoritism, that your friend,
Yeah.
or if they can do it, why can't I do it? I don't know of any way that does not going to create controversy, and you do have to end up, like all police officers use their discretion every day. Like you said, if you're doing 32 in the town, I don't think you're gonna get a ticket, okay? So, but there's still over the speed limit. You can do, you know, like the cities do, you park odd and even, you know, back and forth, if you wanna try that. On some place you can have at least one side. But it almost sounds like, if you want something more detailed, then the idea of, somebody making an application to get a temporary, and I don't think you wanna do permanent things, as far as the ability to park street, but for a birthday party, or, like you said, a funeral, or.
Graduations.
Sure, graduation, you know, that kind of thing. It'd be easy enough to do, you know, like I said, that could be something that could be done. It's more work, obviously, for your office, but you could do that. But yeah, it's sort of like, you know, Mount Carmel was built on hills and narrow streets, so, I mean, we're just stuck with that problem. We can write up as detailed or as general as you want, but quite honestly, because of the situation where it's developed at this point, people, when they've been doing it for a certain period of time, think they have a vested right to do that. You know, their God-given right under the Constitution. So I would expect that you're gonna have a great deal of, once there's something enforced, put down enforced, you're gonna get a great deal of feedback, you know, from the people that are involved. They're not here tonight, obviously, but that's something to do. I don't have a good answer for you. This is what I've looked at the driving ordinances from a lot of different places. Some are very general, some are very detailed, like you go to the beach and you've got, you know, no parking in this area from 6 a.m. to, you know, 11 a.m. You could do that. But again, because of our topography and our street widths, we don't have any one policy that makes sense for, it's almost like every little neighborhood needs its own policy. That becomes very difficult to enforce, it becomes very difficult to measure, unless you want to set you have a zoning map out there. I guess you could break this town down into, but I mean, that's the kind of detail, then you have an officer do it. I don't have a good answer for you, I really don't. And like you said, in one sense, the blanket, no parking, with the ability to make exceptions and use common sense, for, like you said, the events we're talking about.
Well, the older subdivisions, they have wider streets. Back then, 50 years ago, or when our subdivision, you know, and they were wider streets. And as the years go on, the developers have realized, hey, we won't make the streets wider because there's not an ordinance or anything that says this has to be certain size. Then they can save money by narrowing that street.
I think there's actually, I was talking to Vince about that, because I said, you know, we had questions about building fences right along the street right away, and what the different street right of ways were for, you know, you 50 foot right away, but you only have a street that maybe is 27 feet, 24 feet wide, whatever it may be. And he said, we actually have a zoning thing, we don't want super wide streets in the subdivision because we're the ones who have to pave it. You know, so it becomes a great expense for the town, you have to go back and pave this 30-foot wide street, you know, if we had that kind of thing. You're right, there are some that, you know, can easily afford at least one side parking. But that, so it's a question, I guess, whether you want a blanket approach, no parking, and then allow some mechanism for exceptions, or you want to go to the detail of saying, hey, this is what you can do in this location. You know, and then you take into consideration the peculiarities of each street almost, or whatever.
We also don't have the proper signage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of streets that don't have no parking signs.
That's
So
what
we
Colorado
don't
does.
typically-
They do that.
And who wants to live in a subdivision that's eaten up with no parking signs?
I mean, you just did the blanket statement, say with the exception of delivery truck drivers, mowing businesses, or inclement weather, you know?
We can put, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm just saying, but that way it's the blanket statement, and then there's your, you know, exceptions, because delivery drivers is a broad, you know, spectrum. Because it is, you know, a pain in the butt when you're in Hamilton Estates trying to back out of the driveway and somebody's parked in the road.
Or right across from you.
Yeah.
They don't think about that. So I'm saying a lot of people, they just don't think about everything. And there's so many different issues you can run into at any time.
I was in Hamilton Estates, I'm worried about Halloween, because you get a lot of people from out of this
Well, that's
area.
gonna be one of those
That's
officer discretion, they're not gonna go
Well,
in there.
usually,
And it's because the houses are so close
this is what
together.
usually happens, they park their cars
They
like
get used to it.
and walk
A
down.
few years, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
If you make them drive slowly with their kids, instead of just leaving their cars on top of the hill and walk down. And they park on both sides of the roads, and it's just one way in, one way out. And if both cars are parked on the side of the road, you got people coming in at the same time. I mean, it's fun to watch. I enjoy it.
There's
For
so
me, I
many
hate it.
people, it's almost impossible to
Yeah.
control. Because we'll have cops in there, but we're busy walking around watching children
Yeah.
and dealing with. We
Talking about
don't
Halloween.
want to be dealing with parking because then we've taken our eye off the real objective, which was safety for the
And a lot of times you
children.
can't get out.
No.
You just stay.
That's why when we put people in there, I'm usually in there, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. You're gonna stay at home or you're not coming home.
Because mostly it's people don't even live here.
I mean, any neighborhood, I mean, there's neighborhoods all over that are popular for.
Well, most neighborhoods, you
easy
go
walking
through,
trails.
then you escape, you can go out, but there, everybody, you got traffic going both ways.
Yeah,
And
Well, see, you're right there because your subdivision doesn't have as big of a lots as your subdivision's one of the newest subdivisions. It doesn't have as many, the lots are not as big, and so there's more houses they can cover and get more candy.
There's only
I
one
would
way
do
in
the
and one
same
way
thing,
out.
so
This question for Chief, will this enforcement, if we go kind of what we spitball here, I don't know exactly what it looks like when it's written out. Will that will apply like for the school situation as well, where it's bottleneck
As long
parking?
as I can get some signage on that street, because there currently isn't one, and I haven't had time to get with Jason. Jason's been busy, but I've been warning people that this was probably coming. And I was gonna get with Jason, put some signs out there, so they have a visual aid, no parking here, because we're gonna shut that down too.
Okay, because I think that's another problem that we have with
Yeah.
parking and traffic and how it
Yes.
creates a bottleneck on him and at
Correct.
certain times during the day when it really doesn't have to.
Correct.
We've talked to the school and they said that they allow them to come on property at 2:40, so they're
And they're
really,
showing up at like noon.
yeah, I mean, there's people out there.
When we used to use the church, they would show up that early and just sit out there and read a book and just hang out.
Right.
But they
Yeah,
were
I
at
see
the
them.
church, so it didn't bother us. But now it's our problem, and it's,
So I mean, I think that with this, there's so many more aspects than just Hammond Estates that we gotta look at with. this
Hammond
parking
and
situation.
Cherry is the two major, they're
Right.
head to head.
the
Yeah.
where,
Hammond Estates and Cherry Street, where they go to school traffic, those are the two major problems we have right now. We'll have a little scare one here and there, because
I haven't actually seen Cherry Street back up to Hammond for a while. Last year,
we
we
got a complaint today. When the
Really?
complaint finally came in, I looked out my window and there was nobody on the street. It was clear, so
Uh-huh.
I waited to call, I guess.
Yeah. I remember one time I seen the Hammond was backed up all the way down to your office one
Yeah.
time. And I was trying to come out of there in the bus and,
And then there's Hunter's Run. That's the next one.
mm-hmm.
That's the third in line complaint. They'll scatter down the street there. And, So that one's gonna be dealt with as well.
Well, nobody's got a good answer.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
You want to listen, blanket statement with the exception of
A few things.
a few things.
Common sense things.
Exactly.
After this last, we did this 2 years ago, 3 years ago with the parking situation. After that took place, I gave out a couple permits. I just typed something up on Word and gave it to them. They would come by the office and said they were having this or that, and I'd give them a little parking pass. They put it in their dash. But not a lot of people have asked for that, but that happened a few times. But that's about it.
whichever way y'all wanna go, it's fine with me.
I'll say blanketed with the exceptions, and then like for holidays and birthdays and things like that, they get a permit from the police department.
That's
Yeah,
fine with me.
that's the only way I can figure it out. I mean, we tried
She's
everything.
what's doing the writing.
He's the one doing that.
And we will have to probably invest in some more signage. I don't know how much Jason has or how much they cost.
I got a trigger thumb, I can't write now. That's it.
No, all right, that will, that'll be on the agenda too, and I think that's, something that definitely, we need to get a resolution to that out there, like ASAP.
Yeah,
There'll be a little heat for a while, you ain't gonna please everybody, and just let them blow some and they'll get over it.
Well, they had an option to come here or not. They knew we were having a BMA meeting about this, and we did table it for this, and no one showed up.
Well, I guess I would request that we, reach a consensus at perhaps next board meeting about what we want it to be, and then I'll draft the regulations from that, and then you'd have the, ordinance going into effect in the next two meetings as far as the passing of it. The reason being that, at this point, there's still some details that need to be ironed out if you want an ordinance. And we can't do that here in the work session, it will be done in the BMA meeting. So it seems like if you could all hopefully arrive at what you want definitely, then at the BMA meeting, like I said, we can't do that here. So at the BMA, then based upon that, I could draft an ordinance and get it back to you, and you can look at it. If it looks semi-good, we can pass it first reading, make any changes we need to have it come back in for the second reading. But just, that also, I think, will give some more, publicity to this. Part of this is gonna be getting the public to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and it's gonna happen. Nothing worse than somebody getting a ticket and saying, well, I didn't know that. But anyways. what do you guys think?
We could put a grace period in for the tickets.
No.
You could, yeah.
Like
And then you
60
still gotta get it out to
days
the
or
public,
30
that's the thing, is
days.
getting the people that
Then you
just
start
drive in
getting
and
banned.
out.
Then
Yeah.
they'll just
Just
park
for
it for
veterans
60
community
days.
as much as any of
Then they'll
that.
just keep parking there for 60 days.
The thing of that is, Jim, here we are,
You know what I'm talking about.
No, I know, but I don't do it.
here we are in March, by the time he gets the final, by the time this resolution gets passed, it's gonna be April, May, possibly June, before the final one's completed. That's plenty of time for people to know, no parking,
I think people know
You're-
already.
you're- And
And we're
right.
still
It's
dealing
plenty
with
of
it
time.
daily, so this
that's
is,
plenty of time.
So as it sits right now, essentially, the school situation and the other situations, you're by definition able to enforce that as it stands.
Yes.
technically, yes. Now, we've kind of laid low a little bit while everybody's made their decision. We've still been going out and telling people to move their cars. We wrote tickets to people who violated like daily and just wouldn't listen, like, we ask you to move your car, you do it today, and then you do it again tomorrow, probably getting a ticket. Kind of educating the public. Now, the only thing I've done on Cherry is just pull up car to car to car and just talk to people and tell them what was gonna happen, but the next thing is gonna be throw some signs out there and then just kind of run people off and people come up. The main thing is, where am I gonna go? And I'm like, I
Do
don't
we
know.
need, do you need budget money for the signs? Like, is that something we need to move? No, we're good there.
If you make a blanket, you know, the operative is no parking, so the only place you really need a sign is if you were gonna allow parking.
I would
Yeah, I
think the
think
school
if
though,
we-
where they've parked there for so long,
Hmm.
they would give the police a little bit more to at least point to and say, you know.
Yeah, I agree, those are, I'm just saying, you wouldn't have to blanket the city.
The whole thing, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
Well, you've got a sign out there that you can also on one side say, no parking on the street.
Sure, anything
No,
that- as
no
you said,
parking, no excuse on the streets.
Call Alan, he'll get right on
That's
it.
Oh,
right.
Alan's not here right now.
Oh,
He's been getting desperate.
that's so sad. Anyway, people.
But no, if we
And
had
of
a-
course, we can use the media that says, Mount Carmel has passed no parking anywhere on
We'll
the
have to
street.
put in the paper yet again.
I'm sure he'll get that in the paper for next week.
Alan's gonna be all right though, because they're a bunch of bananas.
Oh, but Kingsport's not here.
That's all right.
Good old Hawkins County.
Just watch the paper next week, right?
Absolutely, this Monday.